Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be replacing the upper ball joints on this Toyota 4Runner. Now this is the same Toyota 4Runner that you saw in the last lift video and also the lower ball joint video. So this 4Runner's been going through a little bit of maintenance, which is actually good. If you watch my lift video, you'll notice that the upper ball joint was leaking quite a bit, and it's probably a good time to replace those upper ball joints. Now this job isn't simple and it does require some special tooling, but fortunately you can rent all these tools from your local O'Reilly and the job should be relatively simple. Now there are quite a bit of different options you can go with in terms of upper ball joint. This one is actually not critical, so if you want to just go factory OEM, which is what this vehicle is doing, you definitely can go that route. Now if you do go aftermarket, you will get the entire upper control arm and the ball joint that goes with it, which is definitely a recommendation if you plan on going off-roading and you need that extra down travel. It will also fix your alignment if you can't get your alignment in spec, and you will also get new upper control arm bushings with the control arms as well. Custom upper control arms can cost anywhere from $500 all the way up to $800 depending on what brand you pick. As you guys know, on my vehicle I run SBC and I paid about $600 for those, and they've been working pretty solid. In this case, this owner wants to keep everything factory, so we're going to go with OEM upper ball joints. Let's go ahead and look at all the parts and tools we're going to need for this job. These are the parts we went with. These are OEM upper ball joints. You can see the part number here. I will leave it on the screen and in the description for you guys. Alright, here's everything it came with. It came with a new upper ball joint here. As you can see, it has a little bit of grease in there, but it also comes with extra grease that you're going to need for the installation. There's a white and a blue grease, and I'll show you guys how to apply that. It comes with a new boot, as well as the wire to retain the boot, a new snap ring, C-clip here, and a new castle nut, and also a new cotter pin. And you'll see here we bought two of them, so that way we can install both sides. Alright guys, these are some of the tools you're going to need for the job. You'll need some kind of flathead or tool to remove the flat style brake line holder. You'll see in the video, you basically wedge it out. You'll need a 10mm and a 12mm to break apart some of the bolts that are holding on the brake line. That way it gives you more freedom to move the steering knuckle. An M12 ratchet is helpful but not necessary. You can just use a 3/8" ratchet. An extension is useful. You'll see why in the video. Also, you'll need a 1/2" ratchet and a 1/2" torque wrench that is capable of 80 foot-pounds. You'll need various pliers and some dikes to cut the old wire off. You'll need snap ring pliers so you can remove the C-clip that is holding the ball joint in. A hammer may be useful. You'll need a 16mm. You'll need this for the 2-jaw puller. You'll need a 19mm to remove the top castle nut, a 21mm for the ball joint press, and then a 27mm that we'll use for pressing the old ball joint out. You'll obviously need something to remove your tires, so I've got some stuff there. It's a 21mm. A pry bar is helpful for reassembly. You'll need a flat piece of steel that you can use for pressing. We're basically going to put this on top of the 27mm here, and we're going to press the old ball joint out. I'll show you guys that later. Alright, in terms of pressing equipment, you're going to need some kind of ball joint service set. You can rent all these tools from your local O'Reillys. This is just a standard C press that you can rent. You need a 2-jaw puller to separate the upper control arm from the ball joint, and you'll also use this for pressing as well. I'll show you guys in the video later. You need this 4-wheel drive ball joint adapter set. It's part 67048, and again, you can rent this at your local O'Reillys for free, but you're going to need this long cup and this medium cup here. So you use this medium cup to remove the ball joint, and you use this long cup to reinstall the ball joint. And this here uses that 21mm, and then this here uses the 16mm. You'll also need a strap, so that way you can hold the steering knuckle while you're working. So any kind of strap will work as long as it can hold it in place and not move around. Don't use a bungee cord, it's not going to work. You also need an angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. This is a 4.5". It's on a DeWalt. I recommend you use cord, it's a lot stronger. Obviously you need safety gear. It's helpful to have impact guns. This will help press the ball joint out as well as press the new ball joint back in. So it's helpful to have this. So hopefully you have something like this. You definitely will need the power to press the new one in. Another method you could possibly use is heat and freeze the ball joint. But in my video, I'm going to show you guys just how to press it in normally. And finally, you're gonna need some kind of jack to lift your vehicle up and the jack stand. You do need a jack stand because we're gonna be using the jack to lower and raise the control arm so that we can manipulate it. So make sure you have one of these. Let's go ahead and get started with the job. All right, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna loosen the lug nuts, but since we're gonna get in alignment anyways, you don't have to do this. So you can go ahead and just lift the vehicle and just take it off. This takes a 21 millimeter. All right, now that it's loose, we're gonna lift the vehicle. All right, you guys, next step here is to remove this cotter pin, and we're gonna remove this upper nut here. Grab yourself a pair of dikes, straighten that out, just grab it and pry it out. I'm gonna go ahead and break this 19 millimeter free here. All right, don't remove this capsule nut all the way. We're actually gonna be using it in the next step here. Go ahead and grab your 2-jaw puller here, and we're gonna actually put this part of the puller into the capsule nut so that way it doesn't accidentally slip. All right, so just go ahead and grab both sides with the claws here. And we're going to be using a 16 millimeter up here to undo this. And the reason why you want to leave the capsule nut also is so that way this thing doesn't swing all the way up when it breaks free. And it's going to break free with a lot of force, so be careful. Now, if you don't have a 2-jaw puller, like I said, you can rent this from the local O'Reilly's, but if they for some reason don't have it, try AutoZone first. But another option is you could bang on this thing with a sledgehammer and try to free it, which it would work. But this is actually the preferred method, and I don't really want to cause damage if I accidentally miss. This is how they used to do it back in the old days. It's just hit it with a hammer. All right, let's get started. Don't look directly at it. It's loading up now. All right, as you can see there, it came out pretty easily. It did take a lot of force, so just be mindful of that. There's a lot of tension on this nut right now, so don't undo it yet. What we're gonna do now is actually put the jack under the vehicle, under their lower control arm here. We're gonna jack it up, so that way it takes pressure off of this. All right, here's a shot of where it is, and we're just jacking it up from that lower control arm where it bends. Put a block of wood so you don't scratch it up. All right, before you remove the upper capsule nut, it's still under a little bit of tension, but it shouldn't be that much anymore, so you should be able to remove it safely. But we're gonna tie down this knuckle because it's gonna wanna swing out and all kinds of things. So I got a little strap here we're gonna use. You can just tie it around the spring and it should keep it from wanting to come out. We will use this later to move it out more, but for now we're gonna leave it right there. Now, one thing you could do is you could take a pry bar and pry this down while you're taking this off if you don't want it to shoot off. But we'll see how it goes here. You can see there, I can actually just hit it down, so there shouldn't be that much tension on this. Again, don't look at it, just in case. All right, there we go, it's finally off. Okay, so you can see here it kind of flops around. That's what this strap is for. You don't want it to flop around too much because the brake line is still attached to here. So that's why you need this here. I mean, it's not really moving that much. All right, we're gonna go ahead and remove this brake line here. It's held on by a 10 millimeter. This will give us more movement on this upper knuckle here. And then right back here, there's gonna be a 12 millimeter. We're gonna remove that as well. You can see this hose is still stuck here and it's right back there. And it's a good idea to keep this thing tight here because it's trying to pull on this brake line right now. Oh, gosh. All right, here it is, guys. There's only one 12 millimeter back here. Can't miss it. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this top one as well because it seems pretty tight still, so just gonna free that one up as well. And this one's a 10 millimeter. Alright guys, one thing I also did is remove this brake line as well. It's just held on by this flat clip here. You just take a flathead and just hit it out this way. And you can see now it moves. Alright, we're going to go ahead and remove this wire right here that holds on this boot. So we're going to grab our dike and we're just going to pry it off here or cut it off, whatever you choose to do. You could just rip it off as well. It will break eventually, like that. So there you go. And then you should be able to just slide this boot up. Just like that. Alright, so this upper ball joint actually feels pretty good. It's pretty stiff still, so it's actually a good upper ball joint still. I mean, there's a lot of resistance here. I'll compare it with the new one, but I'm pretty sure this one's good. And there's no up and down play. You can see there, it's very stiff and very solid. Alright, I wanted to show you guys the passenger side really quick here, and this one has significantly more freedom to move here. So the other one was much stiffer than this, so I guess definitely a good idea to replace it. The other one, this feels like too much movement, and it's probably just from wear, but there's no up and down play, and it's probably still fine. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that the driver's side was so stiff, and this one is, you know, completely wobbly here. So if you got to this point and you didn't want to do all the pressing, you actually could just re-grease it and reboot it and then just put it back together. So we could do that, and this would be probably still solid. Like I said, this is not a critical component that fails often. It actually hardly ever fails. It only fails when the lower ball joint fails, and then this breaks off with it. So you could just reboot this and go along your way, and it'll probably last another 100,000 miles. I mean, I've seen some of these go for 300,000+ miles, so you know, if you want to save some money and just buy the reboot kit, it's a lot cheaper than buying all new upper ball joints, and also a lot less labor, because at this point you can just put new grease in, reboot it, put the new wire on, and then reattach it and you'll be done. Alright, since we're going to be replacing these upper ball joints, we're going to have to take off this snap ring here. You're going to need some pliers to do that, snap ring pliers. I'll leave a link for these down in the description. These are probably the best ones to use to take this off. Alright. Alright, there we go. Alright guys, next step we're going to do is we're going to get this ball joint out. This is probably the hardest part of the job. And there's a couple ways of doing this, and the easiest way I found is to chop off this stud. Now you're definitely going to want to wear safety gear for this, because angle grinders are very unsafe, and it helps even to have somebody hold this stud for you. This one's pretty stiff, so this should be pretty easy to cut off. Quick intervention here. The reason why we're doing this is because I don't really want you guys to have to buy this special cup that you see on the screen here. It's about $37, and you're really going to have no use for it after you're done with this job. So I'm trying to keep it to only things that you guys probably have around the house, or something that you can rent for free. And this is the easiest way to do that. By cutting the stud, now you can actually put a 27mm socket on top and actually push it out with a 27mm. You can't use a deep socket 27mm because the stud will hit it. So let me show you how you're going to do this without the C-press. Alright, you can see there would be a quick work of that, and you can just pry it off with the last piece here. Now, since working with the ball joint press is a little bit annoying because it's pretty heavy and it's hard to get into place, I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. So what we're going to use instead is this 27mm socket instead, and this piece of plate. It fits over here perfectly, like so. And we're going to put the plate on top, so that way we have something to press against. And then we're actually going to be using our 2-jaw puller. So we're going to stick it over like this, and there actually is enough material to grab it. So we're going to go ahead and just set it up here and get it under here. And I think this corner piece right here, like so. So here's another angle. There's just enough material on this corner right here, and then the other side, to get this set up. And you're going to need a steel plate like this. Where you can find one of these is you can just go buy one of those cement thingies that they sell. It's like a cement stake. And one of the people left it at my house when they were doing my cement. and I just cut a little piece off with the angle grinder so that way I can use it for pressing. Alright guys, we got everything set up here. It's as tight as it can be by hand. Now I don't recommend you use a wrench here because as you're turning it might slip and there's nothing really holding this on. I kind of lost that piece that made it flat here. So I'm going to be using an extension with a 16mm with this impact. Alright, we're going to go ahead and clean this all up and get the new ball joint ready. Alright guys, for this next step, it helps to have two people just to get everything set up because everything's going to want to fall. But I'm going to go ahead and try to do it by myself. We're going to go ahead and put the new ball joint in place. This is just the ball joint by itself. Alright, you're going to want to put your ball joint in place. We're going to be using the four-wheel drive adapter here. This is the longest one. It's going to go on top like that. And then we're going to put our C-press in. And we're going to go ahead and just press directly on the bottom here. Should be okay. So, like I said, if you have an extra set of hands, definitely helps to have that to kind of get things set up. Okay. So there we go. Alright, you guys, we've got everything in place here. This takes a 21mm, and just in case, we're going to put a rag here, just in case it goes everywhere or something. Now, it does take quite a bit of force to press this in, so we're going to be using the big impact for this. And hope it goes in. Well, it should. All right, we're right about there. So I only had to set it to power level 2 to get it on. So if you have a smaller impact or a smaller half-inch impact, probably will work. I will note that this M12 on level 3 did not work. I did try it a couple times, it didn't work. Alright you guys, we got the new upper ball joint on, and you'll know it's all the way up when it's 1, flush on the bottom, and 2, your snap ring is exposed here where you can fit one. I'm going to go ahead and get the new snap ring and we're going to put it in place. I'm going to use the same tool here. It does take quite a bit of force to get this on. Alright, took a little bit of force, but finally got it on. Make sure you guys have the right snap ring pliers. I didn't have these before, and this was a pain to do it with the blue set, so I recommend you get this red. It's made by Proto USA. So just testing out this new upper ball joint, you can see it's just as stiff as the other one I took off. So like I said, you probably don't even need to replace it if it's still in good shape. Alright guys, at this point we got the ball joint in, C-clips in here. Just make sure it's seated all the way around. And then now we can actually push everything back in since we don't need all this extra room anymore. So go ahead and push this back in. Now, if your CV axle came out, this one actually did come out a little bit, just shove it back in and it'll go back in. All right guys, we got our dust boot here, and first thing you wanna do is you're gonna coat this lip here with the white grease, okay? And then you're gonna, inside where the ribs are, you're gonna coat it with the blue grease. So we're gonna go ahead and take our blue grease here. It's not actually blue, it's just in a blue bag. And we're gonna put it inside the ball joint. I mean, they're going to give you a lot of extra, so it's probably better to have more than less. All right, so we're just going to put it in the grooves in there just so that we get a good coat. I mean, the ball joint's going to move around, so the grease is going to move. All right, it says to put 0.5 to 1 millimeter of thickness. I'm just gonna call that good. Okay, and then on top here, like I said, you're gonna use the other grease that comes in the white bag. Stick that there for a second. Here's the other grease, and you just need a thin coat on the top side here. This is the grease to use for the dust part where it seals. You don't really need any on the bottom since there's going to be a wire retaining it. Once you do that, you're going to slide this over this lip. And just like that. All right, we're going to grab the wire now and we're going to put it around the ball joint. You're going to open it up just like this. Get it over the groove. You're going to get it together. Probably best to use pliers, which I will in a second here. Alright, you don't want to twist it too much because it will break, so just until you see tension here. Alright, I think that should be enough. Where it can't come off because there's a lip here. Alright, there is a diagram on where that wire is supposed to be sticking, because when this moves around here and articulates, you don't want the wire cutting into the boot. So you can see there it is right there. Just look at the shape. So it's going to be somewhere right here. Alright, we're going to trim off the excess. Alright, there we go, fully assembled ball joint. Alright, we're going to go ahead and get this back on the upper control arm. You could jack the bottom up some more, which will make it easier, or you can use a pry bar to pry down the upper control arm here. You can just stick it in here and see that? You can just pry it down. So let me try jacking it up a little bit first to see if it'll make it easier. Alright, I got it jacked up. It looks like it's a little bit easier now, and still won't go on, so I'm going to use my pry bar. Alright, got it down. Get your castle nut on. Gonna go ahead and tighten this down. All right, now that it's snug, we're gonna finish up by torquing it to 80 foot-pounds. Again, this takes a 19mm. All right, check that the castle nut lines up. If it doesn't, you're gonna have to tighten it some more. All right, the castle nut lines up now. We're gonna go ahead and put the new cotter pin in. And then you're just gonna wanna bend it back. All right, wipe up any excess grease. All right, I made one final adjustment back here to the wire. It's facing towards the back here. It's just like how the picture is right here. So it's basically facing the back. It also says to bend the wire downward. So you go ahead and just point it down. All right, at this point, we're pretty much done with the job. We're gonna go ahead and just reattach all the brake lines here. And then we're gonna put the wheel back on and lower the vehicle. All right, you guys, we're pretty much all done with the job here. As you can see, relatively simple if you have the right tools. If you don't have the right tools, don't bother trying it because you're not gonna be able to press that old ball joint out. I mean, if you have a 3-pound sledge and you wanna keep beating it, you can definitely do that. Make sure you don't break or bend that part that the upper ball joint presses in. Also, make sure you don't damage your fender if you accidentally miss, so take extra care if you're going to do that. Now, if you do want to use your 3-pound sledge to beat it out, just remember that you're going to need a press to put it back in anyways. Now, you may try another method and try to freeze the ball joint and heat up the upper steering knuckle. That might work for you, and I have seen a lot of people do that. So you can try that method if you want to use the hammer and beat it out and try to beat it back in. Me personally, I'm just going to use the tools that I have. Now, if I was on the trail and I had to do something, maybe I would try doing something like that. But because this is not my vehicle, I'm going to do it properly. Now, the passenger side is exactly the same as the driver's side, so there's no point in showing you guys that. Just repeat the process and do exactly the same thing. Like I said, pressing out the old ball joint and pressing in the new one is the hardest part. And if you guys want to avoid that, you may want to just reboot your upper ball joint and just call it a day. Well guys, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys hit that like button. If you guys want to support me more, there's a link down in the description where you guys can buy me a coffee if this video really did help you guys out. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. If you guys like content like this, make sure you guys check out all the other videos on my channel. And as always guys, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh my goodness. No joke right there. Whoever did this is a moron. Ugh.